Hey friends. So this morning I felt myself receiving a message or an impression that I think is oriented fundamentally around self-acceptance. And basically, I was sitting in meditation, which is when these ideas always show up. And it's like I got this image of myself as an ongoing non-event, an ongoing. I don't mean that to negate anything, but as an ongoing non-entity, the self as a non-entity. Because what is the self? There's no there when you look close enough. You could say we're a process. The self is a process, but that's not really, doesn't really fix the fact that even by describing it as a process, we don't get any closer to identifying the self, the core of the self, which of course is what mystics have been saying for years. Consciousness is not a thing. Consciousness is in the world, but not of it. Consciousness is the window onto experience. It is not experience itself. Nothing that falls within the realm of experience can be. So then you get into kind of a non-duality thing where everything falling within the realm of experience is consciousness, because nothing is consciousness. But I'm not trying to get into those sort of spiritual semantic games. I'm trying to look at what showed up for me was just an image. I was like, oh, I'm not a thing. So what the reason why that's good news is because if I'm concerned about myself, I'm literally concerned about nothing. I'm not. That's not energy that's well spent. That energy is somehow erroneously tied. There's a sense of like, well, where is this going? Where am I going to be at a certain point? Where am I going to get to? And I remember that I posted something maybe a month or two ago, and one of my amazing students, who's also an incredible teacher in her own right, kind of replied, she just posted a comment and replied that in her work, she steers people away from that question. The question of like, who am I? What am I here for? What's my purpose? Because you can get really bogged down in that question. And I think ultimately, it's not that we can't ask that question or even sometimes answer it. It's just that question tends to point our attention towards the self, towards a self that we're trying to identify, and thereby distract us from the ongoing miraculous experience of being this moment in consciousness. And the other thing is, humans tend to think in narratives, and this is the book that I've now reread. I've read it for the second time. It's in German, called Erzählende Affen, which is all about how narratives shape all the meaning making we do in almost every domain of life. They talk about narratives that we are fed. A lot of the narratives we're accustomed to, both in ingesting, consuming, and espousing, or the narratives that shape our thinking. A lot of those narratives have an end. There's some sort of end point. A movie ends, a novel ends, a YouTube video ends, things end. And but life ultimately, of course, ends. But we're not thinking about that end. We're not thinking about our own death. We're thinking about the time when I get to where I'm going to be when I've fulfilled my purpose, or when I have become who I want to be. And I think this is, again, why my very wise student teacher was offering the insight that that's not a great place to pour a lot of our attention. Again, it's not that we can't think about our purpose. And in fact, I think, depending on our personality, depending on what really moves us in life, what our kind of core energy is, I think it may sometimes be really important to seek our purpose, to reflect on it. But if we're going to do that, we want to be really clear that we're not defining an end point. We're simply offering ourselves a joyful object, or a joyful inspiring image. Once we get there, it's gonna be a mirage, and we're gonna walk right through it. It's gonna be like a hologram. And so then, what was coming up this morning as this again, this all kind of emerged out of an image in my mind. As I sat with it, I realized, this is a lot of this is about patience. This is about being okay where I am now, accepting myself, accepting where I am right now, accepting my process of discovering myself. Like, if I don't know exactly where I am right now, and even if I don't know exactly where I'm going, accepting that. It's ultimately, you just have to accept it all. And then little by little, those things resolve, and we're given new conundrums to play with. But there was this moment where I thought, this is almost like a kind of goal-oriented patience. Like, not that we because in some ways the whole point of what struck me was, well, we need to actually not be so goal-oriented. We need to let the goal as the thing that is drawing us through time, or the thing that is drawing our mind towards it, let that go a little bit, because even if we don't want to let it go, recognize it as a non-thing. But there's like a patience that we can imbue ourselves with. There's a kind of position towards the now that we can assume, which, and maybe goal-oriented is the wrong way to describe it, but it puts us in relationship to the process. It puts us in relationship to ourself. It lets me be here now. It lets me be me now. It lets everything about all the challenges, all the joys, all the confusions, all the aspects of the process, any aspect of the process is allowed. And now suddenly I'm free within the process. There's no outcome that I need to accomplish in order to be free, in order to experience liberation. I'm free right now in every single moment of the process. And there are things that I'm evolving towards. There are challenges that I experience. There are setbacks. There are victories. There are accomplishments. There are gifts. And all of it I can accept, and I can be liberated within it. I don't need to get somewhere else in order to be liberated. I don't need to accomplish my goals in order to be happy. So it's just an interesting kind of perspective shift that happened. And a lot of times, as so often is the case with kind of deeper experiences, they show up as impressions. They show up as not thoughts. Sometimes they're images, or they have an image attached to them, but they're impression is probably the best word I can come up with. They're just something surrounds me, some feeling, some kind of a vision. That's where I am today. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate you. A couple more days of this lake life. I'll keep you posted. Thank you. Have a great day. I'll see you tomorrow.